Shit, this is like a first try, eh?
Yep. And have we got the name for the whole thing yet, or
Ooh.
working titles, or we just let it rip?
It's it's a good point. I don't need these headphones because they're not working. Shit, yeah. Do we have a name?
Well, we had one, but we're not sure.
I feel like we should stick with that name. Like you can't really claim that name.
That's true, and I can't even remember what the other one was. Like it was nothing.
I know what they were doing.
Yeah.
And they spelled it differently.
That's true.
Anyway, maybe we should leave it a little bit in the middle. What we're gonna.
Right.
Like if it's up to me, we'll call it before and afters.
Right.
Because we want to talk about movies we're going to see, and the ideas that we're going to talk a little bit about it before we go see it, and then we'll talk about it after we've seen it, and then share our
insights, our thoughts, our innermost thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfiltered.
Unfiltered opinions.
Unfiltered opinions. So I think, like, my name is Rick.
And I'm Rory.
And we both work actually in film. So I think we both quite have an opinion about how films should be made.
Yeah.
And we have a little bit of an idea how movies are being made. And thought it would maybe be fun to kind of try this experiment and see if we had something to add to the whole podcasting world. And
the discussion around films in general. It's just like, it's an interesting take on it.
Yeah.
To see, like, have a little look-see before we see it and after we've seen it, and see if our minds have changed at all or if our original opinions are just justified.
And I think we've had some pretty interesting conversations after we've seen movies. We just recently watched The Joker.
Yeah.
Which was a personal favorite. I think you enjoyed it.
I really enjoyed it too, and it was good because I felt we went into that without, too many preconceived notions. Just, I think we'd seen the trailer, but we hadn't read all the reviews or anything. Well, I hadn't.
Yeah, I heard it was good, but I mean, like, I haven't really. I didn't watch any trailers, which I prefer to do, but I think for this format, we should probably just kind of, get a little bit, like watch trailer, give our first thoughts, go into the movie, and then come back if it held up, if we thought it was cool, if we thought it was super shit.
Yeah.
I think so. What is going to be the first movie?
Well, the first movie we're going to do is Gemini Man, which I actually am quite interested to do this in this format because I know a little bit about it just because people I know worked on it and I've heard some things about it, but I haven't seen any trailers or know what it's about or anything like that. So it's kind of it's an interesting one to roll into. I wouldn't say 100% blind, but it's pretty blind.
Do you know? Is there anything you know about the story? I actually know very little.
I only know there's an old like Will Smith and then CG like euthanized a younger euthanized with CG, but it's a younger version of him done in CG.
Yeah,
and it's done at Weta, which is a big deal.
Something that I guess we can say you have worked at.
Yeah.
So we're both in visual effects, which obviously makes us a little bit. I would say I love all sorts of movies, so I don't think it's going to be mostly about visual effects. I mean, I guess it's a big part of it, and I think this movie particularly is quite interesting because, and that's how it caught my attention was because, they made a younger version of Will Smith, and so I know very little about the story as well, but I have been told the younger version is done pretty convincingly.
That's what I've heard as well.
Let's see if it holds up. We're pretty critical. We've got a pretty critical eye. And for me personally, it was quite interesting because I used to just work on a project that we tried something similar. And these things are definitely within visual effects super difficult to kind of do because it's just still hasn't really been done, properly, like a full human digital character. And especially from someone who we know so well, like Will Smith. I'm excited. I have not seen the trailer. I do not know anything about the storyline or whatever.
Yeah, same here. So I'm actually quite interested to have a look at this because, like you said, it's really hard to do, and I'm yet to be convinced that it can be done. People keep saying it's really good, so
yeah. And it's like to note, like I've seen it all over the internet. Like they didn't. Make a youth, like they didn't use his actual face and made it younger. they apparently used his, like, it's a full digi-double.
Yeah.
So which is even more harder because, like, in some of the Marvel movies or other movies, they've de-aged characters and people, and that's been pretty successful. And I think that's why I'm kind of looking forward to The Irishman as well, because I think they've done it quite successfully in that movie. But it's definitely a different technique and a different beast altogether to de-age someone or to completely create a CG character. And that's something that I found out personally working on this project. I can't really say anything about, but like I just know from personal experience that it's super difficult to nail that. And we all seen probably Star Wars and stuff, Princess Leia or General Tarkin, and these are coming from one of the best visual effects studios in the world, and they still struggle.
Yeah, exactly. So,
all right,
shall we get into it? Shall we?
Yeah, shit. Like my laptop keeps locking. I should probably fix that. So we're just gonna play the trailer and then come back and share our thoughts. You ready?
Are we going to watch it straight through without anything, or are we going to talk as we watch it? We haven't seen it, so maybe we should just...
Let's just watch it.
All right.
When I saw him, it was like I was seeing a ghost. Like every trigger I've ever pulled. How'd he start you? Hunting birds, rabbit? I'm guessing 19, 20 years old, the first time he ordered you to shoot a person. 25 years ago, he took my blood. He made you from me. He's been lying to you the whole time. He told you you were an orphan. And of all the people in the world to come after me, why would he send you? Because I'm the best. You are obviously not the best. You're just trying to rattle me. I'm trying to save you! You made a choice to do this to me. The whole point of this thing was to give you all of Henry's gifts without his pain. I don't want to shoot you! Mind if I shoot you?
Henry, has this ever happened to you before? Your own government trying to kill you?
Nah, that's new. Everything that we've worked for is at stake.
I am just an icon living.
He has to die. He's your darkness. You had to walk through this on your own. I love you, Junior.
I am just an icon living.
Look what we created. You were the inspiration for all of this. Why not just make a whole army full of them? Why not? You should be flattered. You should be dead.
I am just an icon living.
This has to be stopped.
I am just an icon living.
Because what if somebody actually knew what we really are?
Cool. All right. Dude, honestly, some of these shots look pretty damn good.
Yeah, I was going to say that, the same thing. Like, I mean, it would be really good to see the whole thing, and maybe they've chosen, like, you know, a lot of those shots were kind of dark.
Yeah. I mean, the first half
but-
of the trailer, I was definitely thinking, like, he wasn't saying much. And I was
Yeah.
like, all right, is this going to be a movie where his, you know, past version of himself is just not talking? And that would be a massive difference in the technical difficulty. Like, when we were working on my project, like, everything looked great until they started talking, until we started to have to animate them.
Right.
And that was causing serious concerns. And but then there were definitely a few shots in there where he was talking, so that's definitely going to be in the movie. And I'm kind of interested to see that on the full screen.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm actually excited. I think, like, you know, we like another early one where they did Fast and the Furious, and it was the same thing, like
With Paul
Walker.
Old Mate. Yeah, Paul Walker, yeah.
and some of those shots look pretty good too, and then some of it, like, it was pretty early for face replacement digi-doubles, and some of the talking stuff didn't look so good. But then obviously Planet of the Apes, like, was one of those movies that looked really good, even though they weren't human.
Yeah.
There was a lot of emotion capture in the face, and it looked pretty good for those the last Apes movies. So maybe now they're going pushing that an extra step, changing it to people. And I mean, there were some shots there where you could just see the emotional changes in the face, and it didn't look dead.
It didn't. No, there were definitely a few, because I was obviously looking for it, because I know it's been so hard to do, and I'm kind of like almost hoping they'd fail because we struggled with it so much. But I definitely think they've been doing a really, really good job. There were shots where I was like, oh yeah, shit, like that looks really good.
Yeah.
And there were a few moments where I thought around the lips things look a little bit funny. But I think so far, I mean, these are trailer shots, and I guess you're not going to put something in there if it looks really, really shit.
Yeah.
Although sometimes it's also not the final image. But I think in this particular, like, you're not going to put like in a very ugly looking CG version of Will Smith, and everyone's going to be like, I don't want to see this movie, right? So, but at the same time, looked super convincing, and promising. Let's see if it holds up for like an hour or two, like 2 hours or 90 minutes or something.
Yeah. Story-wise, it looked, like, just to take it another direction, the story looked kind of like a classic sort of story. It doesn't seem like it's going to be anything particularly new.
Bit of a Bad Boys.
Yeah,
Like, I guess it has Will Smith in it, but like it had a little bit of that That's Jerry Bruckheimer, which I think is connected to Bad Boys, and then Will Smith, and it's an action movie. So what is it about? Is it like he's like, from what I've vaguely picked up, like he's an assassin?
Yeah.
And he comes across his younger version of himself.
Yeah, it looks like they've tried to clone him without any of the memories that have made him who he is, right? Like, he's the sum of all his experiences, and they want that killer, but without the
drama or something.
Yeah, without all the trauma and the things that make him who he is now. That's the vibe I get from it. It's got a pretty good cast though.
Yeah. What's that guy? That's from what is it? Gods of Men.
Clive Owen.
Yes.
Children of Men.
Oh, Children of Men. Shit. Yeah. Don't see him very often anymore. So that was good to see. I do like Will Smith. Like, he's just got that good vibes thing going.
Yeah.
He's done good and bad movies, but I also always kind of feel like he's bringing good vibes to the movie, so that's a plus. Ang Lee, bit of a controversy within the visual effects scene for sure.
So this is something I heard about this film, is that it is shot in 120 frames per second and 4K. Like, he was very adamant that it was going to be that. Like, and apparently there's 3 cinemas in the world that can even play this movie with those specs.
Was he hoping that, like, maybe they would bring, like cinemas would do just what James Cameron did with Avatar, that they would, invest in newer equipment and just...
Yeah, it's that. I don't know. It's Ang Lee, isn't it? So I feel like sometimes some of those things are just to do it for the sake of doing it. When you
well, I mean, I'm sure that it tests, right? Like, did you worked on The Hobbit, or were you around for The Hobbit? Yeah. So did you ever? And that was done on 60 or
148. Yeah.
48. I mean, to be honest, that looked weird as fuck.
So I think I don't know what version we're going to be watching of this. Like, if we're going to be watching if we're watching the one where we're getting the full frame range, I've got a feeling it's going to be the same. Like, I just don't know how it couldn't.
Well, I mean, like, definitely what's going to be the difference when you film on 120 FPS is that frames per second, is that you're going to be having sharper frames.
Yeah.
Which is what it is also, which is going to make it very iPhone-y.
Yeah.
Your iPhone is very super high, FPS, and therefore you have no motion blur, and things just look really staccato from frame to frame, right? I mean, like, I don't have to tell you, but for whoever is listening and doesn't know that, but so, like, yeah, if it's filmed at 120 FPS and they project it back at 24, like most movies, and they haven't done some sort of fancy post motion blur thing, it's going to be looking pretty weird.
I'd also be interested to know if it's truly 120 frames per second, Because I'm just
It sounds like a shit ton of work as well.
It sounds
for
like
3 cinemas.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking of it from the perspective of making this. Like, if you were to do the CG at 120 frames per second,
No, that's what I'm saying. Like
you have to render that.
Yeah, you have to render. So 24 is normal. So like you have to render like how many times? 8 times as much, or like 5 times? 5 times as much, roughly.
Yeah. So
and then 4K as well, which is already 4 times. So 5 times 4 is like you know, like 20 times more render capacity and render power that you need to just render pretty complicated CG faces. Yeah.
So I wonder, like, I was just wondering if maybe they actually rendered 120 frames, or there's interpolated frames in there, or what's going on. But I'm interested to see what the final product is.
So you were saying, I think, that they were filming in 120 frames per second because they needed that extra facial detail for the facial performances and stuff, or?
So that's what I heard. Like,
Right.
I just talked to some people and they'd watched, an expose on this. I haven't seen anything to do with it really, but they were saying something about, the extra frames being to capture nuanced detail and facial expressions and muscle movement and things like that. That they reckon we needed 120 frames for in order to get it.
So, I mean, I can understand, especially if they use the mocap kind of facial rigs where they have the little camera on your face, and it's like, why not film as many frames as you can, because you get a lot of that subframe motion and detail that you probably wouldn't get if you would film 24. But those are for the facial capture systems and not necessarily for the film camera systems, I guess.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so maybe we're talking about this and we're gonna show up and it's actually not gonna be an issue at all.
Yeah.
Or we are, and it's going to look like we're watching a soccer match or a footy match.
Yeah, interesting. Exciting stuff to see.
All right. Yeah, anything else? No, I think
that's that sort of sums it up. I feel like what I'm expecting, if I was to summarize what I'm expecting after the trailer and what I've heard and what I've read, which isn't a lot, but is enough for me to think that I'm going to go in and see an average movie with some incredible visual effects. So that's what I'm expecting from this.
Right. Yeah. I think, I've heard a lot about this visual effects wise, obviously being in the industry, but and otherwise haven't heard much about this movie at all. I thought it was out already, to be honest. I think story-wise, my expectations are pretty low, just because I haven't heard much of it. From seeing the trailer, I think visual effects looks pretty promising. It looked like definitely in those shots they were pushing the envelope. So again, looking forward to see that on the big screen in the best quality. And in general, I do like Ang Lee's movies.
Right.
I mean, I did like Life of Pi. Can't really remember what he did after that. But I did enjoy that one. It's just kind of shit how he treated visual effects people.
Yeah. See, and I haven't actually, I'm not that familiar with his work. Like, I know what he's done, but I haven't seen Life of Pi.
Right.
But I think the only movie I know of his that like I knew going into it is the Hulk.
Oh shit, yeah, that actually wasn't that good. Didn't enjoy that one personally. Okay, so like if we had to do out of 5 stars going in, what do you think it's going to be?
I think I'm going to give it a 3 because I think the story is going to be nothing spectacular and new, and I don't want to push those extra stars into the VFX because I just don't know what to expect with the 120 frames per second. I think it could end up
it's a hit or a massive miss.
Yeah, and I think it could end up having some moments which are really good, like technically, but not necessarily make the movie a better experience.
I think that's very well said. I'd have to go with 3 stars as well. I think it's going to be entertaining as a movie. Highly skeptical about the visual effects. So yeah.
All right.
Let's check it. Let's hobble over to the cinema, and then we'll come back and let you guys know what our thoughts are afterwards.
3 stars before. See how many stars after.
How many stars are left, eh?
Yeah.
All right. We'll be back in a bit.
And something you need to see to believe.
Let's fight our way out of this thing.
Ang Lee delivers a true breakthrough for action cinema.
You have 12 minutes to run. Now you have 11 minutes.
Will Smith shines twice. It absolutely must be watched in 3D.
Look at us! You're just trying to rattle me. I'm trying to save you!
Gemini Man, rated PG-13.
Boom, we're back.
And we're back.
How was it?
Oh man, where to start? Yeah, like
How did the stars hold up? Gemini Man, we just went to see it. We came back. We gave it both 3 stars at the start.
before, yeah, after the trailer, 3 stars.
Is that still the case?
Well, you know, I'd say about almost like 3/4 through the movie, I was willing to like pump it up half a star because I thought the visual effects were like actually really good.
Holding up?
They were holding up really well, and I was like surprised at how I had to be like. The only reason I would think about him being 3D is because I knew he was, right? Like because I'd focus on I'd be like, oh wait, he's 3D, da da da. But the last scene looked so bad. And like when he got into the direct light, I was like, oh yeah, it's still got a way to go, this technology. So I'm gonna stick with my 3 stars, I think.
Shit.
Yeah, because
I'll have to say I'm gonna go down to 2 stars.
yeah,
Because I felt that visual effects wise, I thought it looked very promising. It looked probably one of the better, like on this kind of scale for a whole movie to work with a digi-double,
yeah,
like a copy of a human, was really good. It wasn't great.
no,
I feel like there's still a lot of work to do. And I just thought the story was a bit of a cheap version of Bourne Identity, and I just couldn't really figure out who this Will Smith character was, like supposedly the best guy. And then it's like, how do we know he's the best guy, like the best fighter out there, you know? Like, so
yeah.
I thought that was a bit weird. And yeah, there's just a few things in the movie that were quite questionable, and it's just like, in general, the story didn't grab me.
I had to say, like halfway through that movie, I just came to the realization I don't like Ang Lee as a director. I think that was I was like watching a couple of those scenes, and I was like, this is so weird. Like I've never seen something like this in a film before. This must be him as a director, to his choice to do this sort of thing, and I'm not a fan of it.
His style.
Yeah, like to take a scene, for example, the biggest one for me had to be when the dude opened fire with a massive machine gun.
Right.
And then, like, I mean, that was ridiculous to start with. It was just tearing everything apart and no one was getting hit. But more than that, it was like they did this shot in slow motion where they had this, like, crazy sort of epic music playing, and they were just, like, crawling towards the camera in slow motion. I was like, I've never seen a shot like this before, and it's just so weird. Like, why is this in slow motion?
It's kind of dumb.
Yeah.
That shot specifically got me as well. This is later on in the movie, and they're kind of getting caught, and this guy on a panzered vehicle has this like massive rattling gun, and he just starts firing it, and for a second it just looks like he's like all over the place. He's like shooting all over like the fucking world, and it's like, dude, who are you? Like, have you never shot a Gatling gun before? And then like it looked like 95 of the bullets in that gun were tracers. They were not even actual bullets, and that's why you see all the. It looks cool, like, you know, you see all those stripes, those long stripes of bullets, but it's just like, those are all tracers. Those are not real bullets. You know what I mean?
Maybe they thought they were still in the practice range.
Yeah, and that whole fight scene was just questionable, right? With the so I guess spoilers, but obviously we were going to talk about the movie. But yeah, I mean, the movie is about, I guess, Will Smith, one of the best special agents out there. And he got cloned about 25 years ago. And when whoever the DEA or something is figuring out that he is retiring and becoming a risk, they send his clone after him, because the only way to take out the best guy out there is to send his clone, who's supposedly just like him, but
younger,
but enhanced as well,
yeah.
right? Like he has less feelings, and he's kind of like trained by Will Smith's old boss and stuff. And Anyway, you can see the holes, the loopholes starting to pile up here, but yeah. So, and obviously Will Smith's clone is a CG double, and I mean, there's a few things. I think it looks great. I think from the nose up, it looks quite good. As in, like, his eyes look good. The animation of the eyes look really good.
Right.
Wow. Okay, some shit died there. Let's not do that again.
No, where were we before that happened?
Trial and error. I mean, I think we're talking about
The CG from the nose up.
Oh yeah, from the nose up, and then everything from nose below. So as soon as the mouth started moving, I feel like all the shots where the mouth is not moving looks decently good.
Yeah.
And then every time the mouth moves, it's just off. It's just like it doesn't. The muscles in like, like they always kind of animate the stuff behind, and this is the stuff that we were struggling with at the place I was working. Is that like, you miss all that subsurface muscle movement, the pulling on the ears, the jaw, and it's just, I don't know, it looks really weird.
Yeah, I mean, I felt that it was the most successful I've seen to date. Like, I could watch the movie and still enjoy that character, the visual effects, like the performance of the 3D character for the most part, which I didn't feel like when I saw, for example, Star Wars.
Right.
Like those characters,
it took
me straight out, and I just couldn't get back in.
Yeah.
But with this one particularly, I felt like, other than the final sequence where they were in the broad daylight, that one there threw me the same way that the Star Wars ones did. But the other shots in the more like dimly lit areas, I could live with it. Like it wasn't killing the story for me.
And I think some of the weirder things that I noticed is that like they kind of did really, really well with the CG version of Will Smith, but then that first fight scene where they both jump on the motorbike.
Yeah.
It's such a hectic scene, but at the end there's a fight scene where Will Smith is on the ground, which, let's be honest, he should have been dead the way he came off that motorbike.
Yeah.
But it's just like the way they animated the Gemini or the clone just looked really weird. And it's like it happened again at the end of the movie where they were fighting the third clone in the panzer suit or something. Like when he was running around the thing, it's like it had some sort of weird weightlessness of like, it wasn't grounded in reality, that animation. It's just like, come on, you spent so much time on all that other stuff. This is where it's going to fall apart.
It kind of went back to that classic, like, if you saw a Marvel digi-double fight scene, and it's like everything just really like snappy motions.
Yeah.
Like everything's
Too
like it's
fast.
here and then he's over here, like his arm's over here, and it's like moving really statically. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was super weird. And then that specific fight scene at the end where the third clone shows up, like supposedly the best out of the three, like trained to be a weapon version of Will Smith. It's like his body armor that he's wearing is like, I think the biggest like technology that they have in that movie. Like cloning is cool, but like all those other Gemini guys, they were like body armored from top to bottom, like heavy helmets and shit and all that stuff, and they got like every bullet was a straight kill. And this guy, they had to shoot 25 times and he was still doing fine. And I was like, man, they should focus more on giving everyone that body armor instead of, trying to make super clones or something. So I thought that was like a bit of a weird imbalance.
In fact, all the fight scenes, that reminds me, they all kind of felt really video gamey. I don't know if it felt like that to you, but when that first fight scene where they're where he first meets his clone and they don't know each other, but they're having like a one-on-one fight in that courtyard of a building.
Yeah, where he throws the
grenade and the guy shoots it, and then like he jumps off the thing and slides down the tree and stuff. And I was like, is this a Call of Duty map? Like the guy runs real fast and then jumps off and does a roll, and I was like, this looks like when you're playing Call of Duty and some guy will run and jump off the building and then like he's shooting on the way down, and it's like and then like will land in a crowd. Like they're just unrealistic game movements. And it's super hectic and cool, but
all the Will Smith movements look fine, right? So I was wondering, is this deliberate? Like, are they trying to deliberately, make a difference between the young Will Smith and the old Will Smith, and that like maybe he wanted it to be slightly unnatural and slightly too advanced for what we think is real? But at the same time, I felt like it took away from like the rest of the story, you know what I mean? Like it was about like Will Smith apparently being the best. I don't know how that was established in the story. Someone just showed up.
We did miss the first 10 minutes.
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
film.
So maybe in the first 10 minutes, like there was something where it showed how Will Smith was like supposedly the best guy, but I felt nowhere in the movie it was really being reinforced.
Yeah.
That he was the best guy, and it's like, okay, should we just believe everyone that like why is he such a threat? I'm not sure if he's a threat.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
I think for me, I felt like the main overarching story was weak, but it wasn't like complete trash. Like it was fine. I could have enjoyed the storyline and been like not that engaged in like what it was about if the characters, like the visual effects were good, if the story was as it was, and then the characters were better. I think I could have forgiven it. But I thought that the character writing was kind of lazy. Like
Weak.
It was weak. Like I didn't care about like they had like chubby Asian guy who's the comic relief. Like that was literally all he did. Like he'd pop up in a scene, drop some one-liners that didn't really fit, and then
I actually wrote that down. Is like the I made some notes, but like yeah, exactly. Like the comic relief Asian dude, the Baron.
Yeah.
It's like he's not even that funny.
No.
So yeah, I agree. And then Will Smith, questionable. His sidekick, questionable.
And then the girl, she was just kind of like. She shows up and suddenly they're like, this is going to be like a kind of love interest thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like
yeah, at the start, he's like
there's so many classic movies you can take, like Romancing the Stone or like I don't know, The Mummy, any of these things where there's like a male character, female character from, you know, they're a little bit different, but they've got like some sort of chemistry going on.
Right.
And I felt like in this, they were trying to have that, as those two guys had some sort of little chemistry going on, and then they'd have like that the Asian guy would throw a joke in there to try and make things like awkward between them, but it was just awkward all around because I don't know where that chemistry came from. Like they met that night, and then he's just like, do you guys want a double beard? And then they're like, oh no. And then it's like,
I know, it's like, dude, you put it to the, I know, yeah. And it's just like, there were like a few hints throughout the movie. Like I felt at the start, there was a moment where he's grilling her, and then it's like, all right, you want to go for a date? And it's like, okay, like obviously he's still sussing her out.
Yeah.
And then, but throughout the movie, there were a bunch of hints where it was about like, if it was my younger self, you know I would have, you know, you would have like done something to my emotions or something.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, so like we're dropping all these hints about like how you could go for a girl like this. You're trying to, you keep saving her life. Like, why is she in this movie? Because like there's no clear reason why she should be. It's not like she's an exceptionally good.
Well, that's the thing, right?
Like
You're
addition
right
to the team.
because they keep saying that she is, and I'm like, well, what has she done?
Right. Like, oh yeah, it's a promise that she'll be really good, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, and I feel like, I know I missed a little bit of the movie, but I feel like that was how Will Smith was established as well. It's like, he's the best agent we've ever seen. And it's like, but how? Like, how am I supposed to believe that? You know, like, what is it? And exactly, the girl, same story. So I feel like, the way you put it, the story's just a bit weak. I think it's very weak, yeah. And that's also why, 2 stars rather than 3 stars. Like, the visual effects I can respect, and I can see the challenges, and I see that there's still way to go. But the story is just, I think, what most people are also reacting to. Like, I've heard that there's, like, definitely a little bit of a backlash.
Yeah.
People, like, like the Rotten Tomatoes score is apparently really low. And that must be story-wise as well, because it does seem like a cheap version of Born Identity.
Well, I think that's where you're right as well. It's like if you aren't in visual effects or interested in it,
right,
then I reckon there's nothing really for you in this film.
Right. It's a lot of empty promises, I think.
Yeah. So if you were someone who was really interested or had in the industry and you wanted to see what is like arguably the best attempt at like a face replacement for a human character,
right,
then I would say like, yeah, go to check it out.
What is the limit? What we currently can do?
Yeah, it's worth looking at because it's pretty good.
Yeah,
but that's all that it's really worth going to see for.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I still feel it's not quite there. Like, and I think some of the stuff is just really, really hard. Like I've spent a lot of time on this stuff, and I know how hard it is.
Yeah.
But some of the stuff is like the facial animation, super difficult. How we're gonna, grab all that subsurface muscle detail and stuff. Like, we're struggling with it. I understand. But other stuff, I felt like, his skin was too smooth, personally. And that must have been a design decision. But I was looking at it, it's like, it's just lacking some sort of sharpness or detail.
It was, yeah.
Like, sometimes I felt like they deliberately kept him, like, slightly out of focus. And that threw me off. And then there was like a color difference. And I mean, this is difficult because Will Smith is directly opposite to him, right? Like, he cut from the real guy to the fake guy, and you're just like, but like, was Will Smith like a different tint when he was younger? Is that where it came from? Because he had a slightly different color hue.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, maybe he should have cheated at the same color.
Yeah, definitely, because you can't help but draw the parallels between them when you see him and then you look over. And I was thinking the same thing about the smoothness, and like I was looking and I was trying to think what it was, because I was thinking, is it because it's like there's like a consistency to the thing, and like, to his skin color, and like there's all these other characters have more dirt and sweat on them, and it sort of picks up different highlights, and he doesn't. His has always looked kind of a little bit perfect or
smooth. Just like, I mean, like, I think they're trying to make a difference between old guy skin, young guy skin, not as rough or something, because it's difficult, because if you look at it and you look at it for a long time, it's all there, like the pores are there, the little hairs on the skin are there, the watery edges on the eye are there, and I think some of the really great stuff is like, the way the skin stretches and the wrinkles on his forehead like kind of create when he's like frowning and stuff, like I think that's all really good. And there's that scene where he's crying, and it's like the water on the skin, the texture, all looked really, really good. And so I think so they nailed that. But then it must have been a stylistic decision to kind of keep his skin less detailed. And I know that sometimes, too much, like there's such a thing as too much detail where it's too sharp, and it's like, all right, now we've got too much detail, it doesn't look right. And we struggled with that as well. We were balancing it, like, do we need to render this in 4K? Do we render it for like up, like render it big, scale it down so that we have more detail to kind of maintain? And it, it's hard to really, but I feel like things like a skin color and certain softness, I don't know, I think that would have been easier to fix.
Maybe. I definitely feel like that, like it was there, and when you're doing those direct comparisons, it was like more obvious. But there was also some shots where it was just his face, and it was kind of in a still, and I'd look at it and I'd be like thinking to myself, heck, it really does look real. When I stop telling myself it's CG. Yeah. And especially shots where not a lot of animation is happening, it's just a lot of resting face. I think, we can definitely do that these days. Yeah. And this movie shows that as well. But that brings me to the question. I was sitting there in the cinema, and it's like, okay, you guys took a big risk, doing this movie with a CG double of a character who's also in the film. Like, it's not like we're doing Princess Leia 40 years ago and she's dead now. Yeah. Not like we both have her in the movie. And it made me think, it's like, all right, I'm sure you guys did tests before you started this movie, but if I was Will Smith, why would I take this massive risk? Like, for him, there's so much on the line. Like, this is, he's a product, like, if it's never been done before, I would be like, you know what, let someone else give this a try, like, because I don't want to burn my hands on this. I guess I just feel like Will Smith, every movie he makes is always a big blockbuster, but I think his track record over like the last, probably 10 years, or you could almost say, has just not been great. Like, if you wouldn't ask me the last 4 movies or 5 movies he's done, and the last one that was actually good, like, I think if I was to, have a look that up, because I feel like the last movie I remember watching and enjoying him in was probably I Am Legend. Really? Yeah. And I guess maybe that's another thing that made me think, because while I was asking that question, is because he did I Am Legend, and there are some really good CG in there, and CG characters and almost CG humans, I guess. Maybe that was his reasoning, where it's like, oh, I Am Legend looked really, really good. Like, I'm sure 10 years later we can do even better. Yeah, well, I remember that, do you remember ever seeing an interview with him when he talks about his first getting into movies and how he was like, blockbuster sci-fis with lots of CG, that's the future? Like, it's why he took Independence Day and Men in Black, and he was really a forerunner for these like science fiction, like visual effects blockbusters, and they worked out really well for him then at the time. He
Some
was,
of
like,
them, right? I mean, I guess like
Well, his early stuff was all sort of successful. Like you watch everything with Will Smith was going to be in it, you would watch it, right?
Yeah. Well, except for Shark Tale.
What are you talking about? Shark Tale was like epitome of
Animation.
But I think it all started. I don't know when it stopped, like went downhill, but like iRobot was another futuristic great one, like I Am Legend, and then it just sort of started peeling off. Like, you know, he had that one where he was in it with his son Jaden Smith, and it was, I can't remember what it was called, but it was
Oh yeah, like the M. Night Shyamalan movie.
one where they can't talk, or they can't
Right.
have fear or something, or the monsters can sense it, and it was just garbage. And
Yeah, so because he went from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air straight into Independence Day, that was his first movie.
yeah,
That's crazy, because to me, like, Independence Day doesn't feel like that long ago. Like that is like, oh no, he did Bad Boys before that, while he was doing the Fresh Prince. But like, I mean, Bad Boys was obviously classic. Independence Day, Man in Black, that was all his first bunch of really big movies. I guess Bad Boys wasn't that much visual effects, but like Men in Black, and yeah, and obviously he did Wild Wild West. I think that was kind of like the moment where he was like, it, you know, like
we're
big
hitting
visual
this.
effects stuff is the future, and then he kind of fucked it up with that particular movie. But recently, let's going through it, because he's done some really good stuff as well. But he's done recently Aladdin,
oh, like Suicide Squad,
Bright.
Bright, yeah, that's the Netflix one.
Yeah, Suicide Squad, which is unfortunate because, you know, he was actually reasonable in that movie. It was just a really bad movie. Focus, I enjoyed it. It was a bit of an empty action movie, I guess. And then, yeah, Hancock.
Yeah.
7 Pounds. Really loved 7 Pounds. I'm Legend. Pursuit of Happiness. Yeah, he did some more serious stuff, and to be honest, I like his serious stuff.
I do too. It was when he did that comeback stuff that was, you know, I like 7 Pounds. I like Pursuit of Happiness too.
Yeah.
It was, Hancock was pretty was pretty meh.
Yeah, but it was kind of like one of the first, I feel anyway, that was kind of like the first superhero movies that didn't take it all that seriously. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like-
Well, it wasn't. I mean, it started out like a superhero movie, and then it just went out the rails. Like it turned into
Right.
aliens and angels and all
shit.
sorts of rubbish.
Wow, I completely blocked that. Right. Yeah. So yeah, I'm not sure why he took this movie, to be honest. What is his?
I think
Yeah.
it was probably. I mean, like on paper, to a guy like that, probably looks pretty good. Like Ang Lee is, you know, winning all these awards for stuff he does. Like I think he was kind of applauded for like the visual effects jump they did in the first Hulk. Like people were like, "This is really
Right. I mean, the
realistic,"
Hulk
right?
at that point
At that
looked
point.
as good as it ever. You
Yeah.
know.
And then
now you look at it, doesn't really hold up. But
And then Life of Pi, the same thing, you know, people were like, look at this, like CG tiger, like the whole, you know, there's nothing that's not CG except the boat.
and I did like Life of Pi. I thought it was. I mean, it's obviously based on a book, and it's a good book, and it's a good story, and it made for a good movie.
I actually haven't
But,
seen it, so
yeah.
I can't comment on that.
Fair. But I you know, like, so I give him that, but then the Hulk, not a massive fan. This movie, sorry, Ang Lee, but not a massive fan either. I think it's pretty lazy in the storytelling, and yeah, I actually would expect more from him, to be honest. Like, this guy knows how to. I feel like he knows how to tell a story. You know, that always surprises me when directors go kind of backwards sometimes. I mean, everyone has hits and misses, but and like I probably couldn't do it any better, but like it's just weird how you go from like still telling good stories and at least doing a movie where you show that you know it, and then you go back and it's just kind of average.
Yeah, I feel like they probably were putting all their focus on the visual aspect of this. Like, I mean, I think, you know, also we watched it in the just standard definition, standard cinema, and they had the 3D 120 frame per second version.
I don't know. Like, I don't know if
think that
I'd
was-
necessarily want to see this movie in 3D.
No. Like, I mean,
Or
I'd be
make it
interested
worse.
to see what it would look like. I don't think it would make it look better, but obviously that's what they were making it with that in mind.
Yeah. So to come back to that, the 120 frames that you pointed out, didn't notice it at all. Like, not sure what the technology behind it was and how it exactly was used. Like,
Yeah. Well,
we don't really know, but like I felt when I was looking at it, it looked like a normal movie, basically.
Right, but then I think that was the same with, the Hobbit movies. If you watch them in 24 frames per second, they look like they're in 24 frames per second, but the 48 one looked weird.
But don't you think that the difference between, now we're getting a little bit technical, but if you go from 24 frames to 48 frames, so like half the amount of shutter, which means half the amount of motion blur, like cutting out every second frame means that you basically have the half the amount of motion blur. So, I mean, it's not it's not great, but at least you still have some motion blur. But if you go from 24 frames to 120 frames, 5 times as much. Now your shutter speed is 1/5. Now your motion blur is 1/5, if not less, of that. That's not a lot of motion blur. That's pretty sharp.
Yeah, that's true.
But again, like maybe they did some interpolation or motion blurring or combining frames or something, blending frames together when they did the 24 frames version. Yeah. What else? I did write some stuff down because this is kind of the first time we're doing it, and I didn't really want to, because normally we just talk straight after the movie, right?
Yeah.
We're just like, oh shit, this is really fucked up, but that was really cool, and now we just had to kind of sit on it for 20 minutes and not forget anything. I think the other thing is that, like I've written it down here, like the CG character of Will Smith just looked like he was perpetually concerned. He had this one emotion. It was just almost always like, oh.
Yeah.
It's like always like, so that was weird. I don't know what happened there. I also noticed when I saw Clive Owen, like he looked really old. I hadn't seen him for a while. He looked old. And when that happens, it always makes me feel old. Like it happened to like, what's the guy from Castaway? Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks, right?
All of a sudden, he started looking really old, and I'm like, no, don't get old.
Don't get old. That
means you can't do action movies anymore or fun movies. Now you just become people's dad.
Yeah, and it also makes you're right. It makes me feel old when I see that because I'm like, they were like when I was watching these movies, they were young. Now they're older.
Like Forrest Gump, like Tom Hanks looks like us, right? And now he looks like my grandpa.
I was thinking...
Not really. My grandpa looks different.
I had like the same thing with like music. Like I'd see an artist and then I saw them recently and they're like, what the heck? Who is this person? Like when I was a teenager, you
mean like someone you knew?
No, no music. Like if you see a music video when you were young, I used to love this band, and then you just stop listening to them because you grew up, and then you see them again now, and you're like, wow, this guy was like a punk rock, like back in the day when emo was like massive. This guy was like one of those emo kids with the fringe.
Yeah.
You see them now, it's like kind of a chubby middle-aged man, and you're like,
it's like the dude from Sixth Sense, right? Like
Haley Joel.
Yeah, exactly. He's like cute little kid now. He's a little bloated, little chubby, little lunchbox, little fatty. No fat shaming, by the way. He likes a little bit of food. Maybe he has a disease. We don't know. We're not judging, but he looks different.
He certainly looks different.
So I saw that and it's like, wow, he looks old. No. And he had a shit role in it.
He did. But the thing is, I don't know if you felt this way as well, but towards the end, when I saw the last scenes with him in it, it also didn't really look like he cared. Like it didn't really.
He just gave up on acting himself.
Yeah, well, it felt like he wasn't really putting much into the role. Like he was just. I mean,
but his role was also not that.
No, there was
depthful.
There was no depth.
Yeah.
Well,
but that's not really his fault though. Like it's not like he had a lot of ability. Like I don't know. Like so in the film, spoilers obviously. He is the dad of the clone. Like he raised the clone as his own, and he's like, "You're my son." But like this is the other thing. It's like, all right, you're gonna send the clone after your original. You don't think he's going to pick up on that? And then he comes back, the clone comes back, and he's saying, Dad, what the fuck? And Dad is like, oh, yeah, well, I think now is the time I should tell you that, like, like you're a clone, but I love you like a son. And it's like, dude, you're sending him to kill his original version. Like, how is he not going to fucking pick up on that?
Yeah.
Like, I thought that was such a thin plot.
It's also kind of interesting that if they had the weapon version, why didn't they just send that from the start?
Yeah, and he didn't have to risk his relationship with his son. That meant so much to him.
And also ended up being the reason it failed.
It's just super cheap. And it also made me think, it's like, all right, well, shit, we can clone people now. Is this the best that we can do with the cloning? And then at the end of the program, like, obviously these guys, Will Smith wins. And they're like, all right, yeah, we shut down Project Gemini and, like, all the clones are going. And it's like, really? Like, you got all this brutal technology to do this, and this is how you're gonna, like, and now all of a sudden it means nothing to you anymore.
Yeah.
Like, and is really like, is that really the first thing you would do if you could do cloning? Is that what you would do? You turn them into weapons, or would you like what is it in the island? Turn them into organs, harvester organs for like the rich body doubles. I don't know. Is that really what we're doing? I don't know what I would do with the, you know, if someone said like, hey, for $100,000 you can create a clone of yourself, I probably wouldn't do it. But even if I would, what would I do with it?
Yeah.
And also the other thing was like, all right, we're going to clone Will Smith because he's supposedly the best fighter ever. It's a little bit like how they cloned Boba Fett.
Right.
Or Jango Fett. What is it? Boba Fett. Jango Fett?
Yeah.
Because he's a really good bounty hunter and they want his skills and his... But I still feel that, like, okay, you can clone a person, but it doesn't mean that he becomes, you know, the best fighter ever. Like, he still needs to be, you know, like, it's not a given that he just becomes a really good fighter. Like, you have to train him like that. Like, you know, like, I think it's just way more complicated than let's just clone him and then raise him like a fighter.
That's the idea, like, right? If they talked about taking him and cloning him as he was, making like an exact version of him, like in something like The Prestige, where like your clone is just instant duplicate of you with all your memories up until that point, it makes more sense. But when they're just making a DNA copy, it's just like, I'm surely like you can just manufacture DNA to be like the best of everything. Like, what's that movie with Jude Law where they have a I can't remember what the name of the movie is, but they have this thing where they can like alter DNA and like spot like DNA defects and like remove them.
Well, that's kind of what they did with the third clone, right? Like they said, like, we totally optimized this one. And I mean, like, and we joke about it, but it's like that like DNA editing is the future, right? Like, we both have a mutual friend that is going through the process where they're looking into his DNA to see if they can fix his autoimmune disease or something like that. And but I mean, in the future, like, we're going to have designer babies. Yeah. Like, we were able to look at your gene, like your DNA string or whatever the DNA string of the baby is, and alter it in some magical way. And they can see that, like, normally on his 40th, he would get cancer, and they just erase that string. It's crazy. Yeah. And, you know, like, I can see that they would do something like that. Like, he's a healthier, maybe stronger version of Will Smith. But, like, stuff that is thought in the brain, like, if you grow him from a baby up, like, stuff that you need to, you know, being strong is maybe one thing, or genetically, you know, having the ability to be strong quickly is one thing, but to be, you know, the best fighter or making the best decisions in critical moments, like, surely you need to teach him that. And you just don't quite know how Will Smith taught himself all that knowledge. Yeah. So, like, it's never a given that this guy is going to be the better version of him. And surely enough, in the first or in the second fight, I'm pretty sure he already is like, I'm a better version of you. And he's like, really? Don't think so, right? Yeah, like, he's got him at gunpoint.
Yeah, you just lost this fight because you didn't outsmart me. And I mean, you're like, oh yeah, it makes sense. Like, you've been around the block a bit longer.
Yeah. So that was weird. I thought, like, okay. And then the body armor. It's like they should have given Clive Owen's character the body armor as well. Like, the last guy had super good body armor. I think that's way more valuable when it comes to warfare. Give everyone a suit like that, no one would have died.
Yeah, exactly. And it looked like Ant-Man's suit. And it did.
Yeah, it did.
And there was that was another shot which was a thing where I was like, what is this, like, Ang Lee style? And if it is, I'm not a fan. Was you know, I was saying the slow motion with the shooting and like they're crawling and it's playing this like weird sound and it's like this epic moment, but they just look stupid because they're crawling away from the gunfire.
Right.
And they had the same thing right at the end where he starts walking out of the fire and he's in slow motion. He's getting shot by the shotgun, and it feels weird because it looks and sounds like it's supposed to be epic, but it's not. It's just kind of silly. So I'm just like, it just sort of falls flat, and it's used a few times throughout the movie instead of just one pivotal point. He goes into slow motion, like, I feel like maybe 3 or 4 times in the film throughout the film.
I felt that last fight scene where he is being set on fire, which is what you're talking about, right? Yeah, it's like, I thought it was a weird scene as well, like, where he's unloading that shotgun. Like, it took me a while to get what kind of gun that even was. And it's like a shotgun with like weirdly yellowish, like, sparks coming off of him. And is like, is it a grenade launcher? Is it like, it ended up being a shotgun, but it's like, I couldn't really place it. And it was all just a little bit much. Like he's in the fire, like he's like the shotgun shells don't do him anything. I don't know. Yeah, and it was all visually a little bit over the top as well. Like he was like engulfed in flames, and I don't know. Yeah, you make a good point. Yeah, not quite a fan. Too bad, because we saw Joker last week and it was so good.
It was so good. Yeah.
All right. Well, should we end it on that note?
On that note, yeah, we should, I think. And also, I think, I'm looking forward to doing some of these other movies coming up, like The Irishman and...
the better ones. Like the ones that we have higher hopes of anyway.
Higher hopes of, and the Jojo Rabbit. And also, I'm a bigger fan of starting to do these other ones because I feel like we can talk about the movie more. Like, there wasn't really much movie to talk about here, so we focused a lot today on the CG. Which is,
yeah. So, like, that's hopefully not really what we're always gonna do. Yeah, I mean, although we're visual effects guys, like that's what we do for a living. Like, yeah, I agree. Like with the Joker, I think we had some really cool conversations about the story and the way things are done, and we looked at some really cool making of stuff. And yeah, I'd much rather get more in depth on that kind of stuff: storytelling, visual storytelling, acting performances, that kind of stuff. Yeah, but I thought this is a really good, little tester. Like, I'm not sure if this is going to be released or if it's all going to work out, but I think I'm just keen to do this more often and see if we can find a groove, and if we can kind of like, perfect this into like a little cool little thing. And if we release this and people do hear this or watch it, whatever, like any ideas, I guess, welcome. Stuff that we should pay attention to, or things that you would really love us to talk about when it comes to a movie, like why pay more attention to certain aspects, let us know. And I think on that note, we'll catch you next time.
That's a wrap.
Peace.